Hello everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's second video. So, we're already on weekend forecast. You can find me about on the homepage. There's also a written version, which you get to via buttons at the top of the page. It's going to be quite an interesting week's weather coming up, and I'll let you see weekend forecast to see what you think about that. This is the verification for the winter 2016-2017 forecast. So, on the 1st of December at Gas Office, we issued our winter forecast, and quite an interesting forecast it was as well, predicting a colder and slightly snowier than average winter season ahead. We've, of course, come to the end of the season now. We're into spring. And so, as forecasters, it's very important that we go back and verify our forecasts, see what happened, whether they came out right, or indeed whether they came out wrong. And that's what we're going to do for tonight's video. So, you're going to see what happened for the winter of 2016-2017. Right now, we're using the climate averages from the UK Met Office. You can find the link to UK Met Office on the links page. So, the Gas Office winter 2016-2017 forecast was for a slightly colder than average winter, around a half a degree to 1 degree colder than average. We also predicted a drier than average winter, potentially quite significantly so. We find it probably quite a frustrating winter, one that's on and off, kind of, with the cold coming and then fading out, and possibly fading out to very mild spells, and then the cold comes back again, and then it fades away again. That kind of coming and going winter for colder weather. And we thought, whilst it would be a drier than average winter, there would be the prospect of some snow, more snow than we've had in any winter since 2012, 2013. Anyway, albeit not a desperately snowy winter. We didn't predict a severe winter. We didn't predict sort of a severe big freeze type winter at all. And actually we thought that there would be a lot of frustration coming along this winter, with the general pattern being one that's quite still, quite boring in some ways. We predicted high pressure would be focused more towards Scandinavia compared to anywhere else. So this is the mean temperature anomaly for the winter of 2016-2017, set against the 61 to 1990 average. That's an old and cold temperature average. It encompasses the cold decade of the 1960s, which had loads of cold winters. So you can quite clearly see that the Gas Weather Vid's winter 2016-2017 forecast was wrong, because we came out with a milder than average winter across all parts of the country. And very interestingly, the north actually comes out with a bigger temperature anomaly compared to the south. That doesn't happen all that often. It is indicative of quite an unusual weather pattern that occurred this winter. It was a very, very unusual winter in many ways. So we see that much of Scotland comes out around 2 degrees above the 61 to 1990 average. Northern Ireland, Northern England comes out at around 1 to 1.5 degrees above average, and southern and southeastern England comes out around half a degree to 1 degree above average. So it's colder in the southeast, albeit still milder than average, and warmer in the north and west. And we see the same thing if we set it against a more modern average. This is set against 81 to 2010. A more modern average that encompasses the warming that has occurred over the past 30, 40 years. But again, it's the same pattern that we see here, with the north warmer than the south. So actually, when we come down to the very, very far southeast, the temperature anomaly there was almost around average, really, set against 81 to 2010 in the very far southeast. But most parts are still above average. Much of England is coming out around half a degree above average. Much of Wales, Northern Ireland, Northern England coming out around 1 degree above average. Much of Scotland coming out around 1.5 degrees above average. And this area in the west of Scotland is coming out around 2 degrees above average. So it's still, whichever average we use, still the idea that the north unusually was warmer this winter than the south. But all places were coming out milder than average. So therefore, the Galsworthy's winter 2016-2017 forecast was quite obviously a bust, because we predicted colder than average temperatures, albeit not severely cold, but slightly cold on average, and we've come out warmer than average. So the winter forecast was a poor forecast from Galsworthy's.com this season. In terms of precipitation, now we did predict that we probably have quite a dry winter, and that has occurred. So we've got precipitation anomalies, or rainfall anomalies, set against 61 to 1990 here, and we find that the wettest place was in the west of Scotland, where we have average rainfall there. The bulk of the country, the vast majority, is coming out drier than average, particularly so for England and Wales, and also for Northern Ireland, with some places having less than 50% of their average rainfall. And set against 81 to 2010, actually, it's a more even spread of drier than average, because even most of Scotland is coming out drier than average there, as it is for most parts of England and Wales. So that side of the forecast went better. It was a drier winter, but what happened, of course, is that the high pressure, instead of centering over Scandinavia, did keep trying to get going over Scandinavia. That was the frustrating thing, because the idea was that we would have a greater than normal probability of building a ridge over Scandinavia, and that actually happened. We had many goes through the winter of getting the ridge over Scandinavia, but it just never managed to lock in. It kept trying to build, and then within a couple of days it would be pushed down into Central and Eastern Europe, and that took the cold temperatures, the cold air, into the east and the southeast of Europe, because cold air will always be on the eastern side of the ridge, the southern and eastern side of the ridge, and that meant that most of Europe, particularly Central, Eastern and Southeastern Europe and through the Med, was very cold, but the northwest was always on the mild side of the ridge, or nearly most of the time on the mild side of the ridge. This was our 500 millibar height anomaly prediction for the winter. We predicted that we would probably have some sort of ridge out to the north. The anomaly was to have it to the northwest of the UK. I sort of thought it would be more there over Scandinavia, but whether it was to the northwest or to the northeast, the idea was that we'd have some sort of ridge to the north, and then we would get that trough in to the south, which would produce the east and northerly winds. This is the anomaly we actually had for the winter, and we can see that what happened, again, that high pressure, the ridge was centering very close to the UK, so it was centering through here, which meant that the coldest of the air was pushing down around the southern and eastern side, which takes the cold air down into the east and the south and the southeast of Europe, and leaves us, of course, on the mild side of the ridge, pulling the air up from the Atlantic. So it was a dry winter, but it was also a very mild winter, which is an unusual combination. Normally, if the winter is dry, it will be cold, and if the winter is wet, it will be mild. So it's a very unusual winter that occurred. I think it's probably just about the record for the mildest and driest winter. But of course, there wouldn't be that many winters like this, so there wouldn't be that many to compare it to. But for mild and dry winters, there have been a few over the years. For mild and dry winters, I think this is a record. So it was a very unusual winter in a lot of respects, and certainly it catched Galsworthy's out, it catched myself out. So the forecast was a poor forecast, despite all of the analysis that we did with winter updates through the autumn. We ended up with the wrong result. We ended up with the wrong forecast, and I can only apologise for that and say, as I always do, that long-range forecasting is always experimental. It's not to be relied upon. All of the caveats that we put in are put in because these things do go wrong, and it's just one person's, my opinion, of how I'm interpreting the information that's being presented. But the weather is dynamic and it will very often find ways of catching us out. So it was a poor forecast this winter. We will endeavour to do better in coming seasons. I'm happier already with the way the spring forecast is panning out. And of course it won't be long before the journey to next winter, to 2017-2018 begins. That will all start with the NAO forecast. And by the way, the NAO forecast has panned out quite well. That side of the forecast did pan out okay, because we predicted that whilst the North Atlantic Oscillation wouldn't be going negative, it will not be as positive as it have been over recent winters, if you see what I mean. And that did occur. So that side of it went okay, and we'll be starting our journey to winter of 2017-2018 with the NAO forecast that will be released sometime in summer. I haven't got a date penciled in. It'll either be June, possibly early July, but it'll be with you sometime through the early part of the summer. So that's it. That closes the door on the winter of 2016-2017. It was a very fun journey to get to the winter, if the destination ended up being really quite dismal. Right, that's all for now. Don't forget to check out the weekend forecast. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.